is spent, and it's available on the minutes of that committee. What do you think the common good fund is used for? I think at the moment, a lot of things that it is used for, it is about the Lord Provost who decides who gets civic receptions, whether that's dignitaries, local people. I understand that the champions, local champions, are, you know, these get-togethers are maybe funded from that as well. So I'm not 100% clear about the whole list of different things the Lord Provost approves, but it is up to the Lord Provost how that is approved.
That certainly answers local democracy in terms of the housing justice aspects. We've had the TRA tenure mix come up already this evening. That's the Maryhill Locks Development, where 17.5% of the development is for social rent. The rest
is that the one I mentioned earlier?
That's the one you mentioned earlier, Mr.
Radley. Can I say...
They commit to the house and the LEOs? He's not answered them.
I did answer in the
Commit
question
to
that
the
I was
in-house.
I did answer on the questions of REOs earlier on. In terms of the... just before I came out, Chair, I did ask to make sure, I don't know if I brought it along with it, the actual, you're talking about 17%, I have an email, I've got it with me just now, but emailed that the housing that's been built is, I think it's 180 units.
I had 143,
but
180 would be affordable,
correct.
affordable total.
I've been told all of them are for social renting housing, and about, I forget the figure, I looked at them earlier. I did ask Maryhill Housing Association just before it came out, and the rest, I think maybe 30 or 40 of a shared equity. None, I was told none was for private. So,
and there are 800 homes to be built, 143 are for social rent. You're right to say I think about 180 come into what they call affordable, but the vast majority will be privately sold.
180 that I've been told about just now, which is most of them are shared. So you mean the rest? Are you saying the rest will not be? Are all private?
Of the 800, yes. Apart from the 143 that are for social rent, the rest are private. And we have that from the Scottish Government. So that's clear.
Well, what we need is social housing.
Okay. Well, if elected, would you use your influence to address that?
What I would say is that a mixed tenure is a good way of going in housing, and from my understanding, a mixed tenure makes sense because you've got social housing, you've got private, and you've got shared equity, and that makes a good mix in terms of you know, for good neighbourhood and good looking after of the area. And certainly there should be more social housing than private, and I would support that.
You would support that? Okay. Right. Okay, so we're clear on that. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to make your position clear?
In-house GHA, I don't think that will be possible. The money needs huge amounts of money to bring something back. I think it was a decision by the actual, it wasn't Labour's decision, it's people who were living in those houses voted to go the way it has gone. Therefore, to bring that back, I don't think anybody could commit to bringing that back with the cost that it would incur. I'm just being realistic.
Okay. Anything else you wish to make your position?
I think I've said what I needed to say about all these things, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, that's your position. Right, okay. Liam has already made his position clear that he supports the whole lot, which is great. And I would like to ask Steve Parish to explain the Greens' position.
Well, actually, a lot of it sounds like it's been lifted out of our manifesto, both nationally and locally. Enhance local democracy, yes, we absolutely want to hold area committee meetings locally, and we do want to involve community leaders of all sorts. They may not have voting rights, but they should have a say Certainly, a community council should have a look at it. So that goes without saying. So I absolutely support most. I mean, to clarify one or two things. The Common Good Fund. Every local authority in Scotland has a Common Good Fund, but Glasgow until recently didn't have a list of what was in it. Common Good is all the land that the old parishes. It was a commons was how it started. It was a common grazing land, and that belonged to the people. So all these reforms we've had with the regional councils and district councils over the years, nobody's kind of kept track of not just land but buildings as well, and gifts, paintings and things that have been bequeathed to the city. A lot of it's in the Borough collection. That's a good example of Glasgow Greens in the Common Good and Borough collections in the Common Good. But there was actually no inventory of this. And I helped Nina Baker about 5 years ago, who's the Green Councillor for Anderson City, to compile a list and to push for the council to have an inventory of the Common Good Fund. And I think that has happened now as well.
I mean, certainly the expenditure.
Yeah. And from what I understand, until a few years ago, it was one of the things the Common Good was used for. There's a bit of farmland up in the south side somewhere as well, apparently, that belongs to the city of Glasgow. So you can go up there and have a picnic and graze your horses or whatever. But it was used for the members' dining room. It paid for the members' lunches until fairly recently, amongst other things. I know that's one thing for a fact, which seems wrong, but you are right. A lot of it is it's a lot of provost's discretion as to what it's used for. But it's land and goods that belongs not to the city council but to the people of Glasgow, and it's not for the city council to sell it to property developers. But this happened over the years because it was kind of people lost track of it and thought it was for the council to administrate, and it's not entirely. A good example in Edinburgh is Princess Street Shopping Centre. Now that was sold years ago by the council for £1 to a property developer, because obviously we're going to get business rates now. Great, but that was in fact that belonged to the common good. So it's not a bad idea selling it to a property developer if they want to build, but that money shouldn't go to the council. Well, it should go to the council, but it should go to the common good and not to pay for services. So I do want to clarify that the common good's been abused and misused for a long, long, long time, and it's only now that local authorities are getting to grips with it. So yes, I support all that about enhancing local democracy. That's what we're about. The Green Party about localising local democracy as much as possible. And that also goes with the independence referendum. It's not about just replacing Westminster for Holyrood. It's about giving local authorities, community councils more power and more say. Housing justice, yes, I think I've already commented on that. We absolutely support more social housing, and any publicly owned land should be prioritised. If it is to be sold off, should be prioritised for social housing or public housing of some sort. Tackle fuel poverty and climate change. Well, that was our manifesto last year. Patrick Harvey did manage to get 30. You may remember that budget was in question a few years ago because we wanted £100 million set aside for the climate change fund. We managed to get 30 million, and there's a climate change challenge fund 2 as well, and that has benefited thousands of community projects all over Scotland in tackling fuel poverty and addressing climate change. So it goes without saying that I support it and we support it. But this is not about me, it's about the ideas that I represent. And it's important to realise it's not about personalities, it's about ideas. And I'm just the one that represents those ideas, whether you like me or not. It's about the ideas that we represent. Action and local jobs, I support all the things there as well. We have to commit to a minimum working wage of £7.20, and there should be no more of a 1 in 10 ratio between the highest paid and the lowest paid of any LAO or anybody employed by the public sector. Certainly, we can't force the private sector to do it, although there are some good examples like the John Lewis Partnership that do it. I think their ratio is 1 to 15, but don't quote me. But we have a commitment to make it 1 in 10 in Glasgow. So yes, support it.
Right, I'm just going to take further questions, and Mr. Razaq told me in advance that he does have another meeting to go to, so we have 10 minutes more of Mr. Razaq and 25 minutes more of the meeting in general. So if you want to get a question to Mr. Razaq, probably now is a good time. And I'm going to go right to left, and yourself there, hand up first.
I thought it was interesting that the council seemed to omit one of my passions is the uncountability of the running tracks, the tennis courts, the football pitches. And I was really pleased with that you kept saying ideas and not personalities. I mean, there may be some personality clashes that I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but getting Glasgow Life to engage in any constructive dialogue, as we've spoken about on numerous occasions, Mohammed, it's just been so difficult. And it's just like, well, if your face doesn't fit, if you're not the Glaswegian accent, or if we don't like you, we don't like your glasses, who knows what it is. But I think I have a very good idea that we should get teenagers using the local running tracks and tennis courts. But every single one of you didn't really talk about, transparency on how to get local people to use our local assets. And I'd like to have a bit of a commitment that you'll be able to support local people, not professionals that are airdropped in to run 2 or 3 sessions, and then as soon as the money dries up, they're gone, but local amateur volunteers to come in and help us do things.
Okay. Before everyone answers that, I'm going to take the second question, just because of press for time. So, Andy.
Yeah. I'd just like to make a point here and raise the question of the high earners within Glasgow City Council. It seems to me that at a time when the people of Glasgow have been hammered by cuts and folk are losing jobs and services, that some folk, as I say, the highest earners in Glasgow City Council are in excess of 200,000 per annum. What's your views on that?
Okay.
Certainly, your question we've met many times on that, and certainly there is, depending on issue by issue in terms of the tracks, and I think that there was issue about who is able to assist with the training of young people on certain sports, if I remember right, and no.
There seems to be a lot of confusion about that. We've never had that nailed down in writing exactly what the problem is.
But I think, was it not about the legal in terms that we have to go by the national guidelines for coaching and so forth? That if I remember right, that
legal implies that there's some statutory obligation. This is just a bunch of people that make them up. As Sports Scotland has no legal. They are the dominant player in the market. They have no legal hold on what we do. There is no insurable risk. It's just firms aren't making money out of it.
Well, I'm certainly, as I said, if you have tried with yourself in terms of getting down to the bottom of the issue, but it was being the national government and local government and the rules of certain coaching and
private companies.
This is maybe.
Yeah, so I think that was the issue, and we've never got round to resolving it. The other question was about high earners. You're right, I think what we need to have is a balance between what people's worth is and make sure that's how people are paid. Certainly that's done by a committee in the chambers about, so therefore it's them that takes that on board, and I think there's a mixture of people from various parties that sit on that, and I think they need to make a decision on what the ceiling would be for pay, and it's all about making sure, you know what I say, if you pay peanuts, what you get, but certainly you have to pay appropriately in terms of, getting the best people to make sure we get the best services, at the end. But I do agree with you, we need to watch how people are paid at the top end.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I think it's absolutely ludicrous that there's people and local councils across the country that are earning vastly more than even like senior members of the government, more than the Prime Minister. I think that definitely needs to be brought much there. I don't think there's any reason why anyone employed by Glasgow City Council should be earning more than about £70,000 or £80,000. In terms of the running tracks and stuff, I think it's great that there's local people taking the initiative and trying to get these things going, and I think it's just ridiculous, this stifling bureaucracy of Glasgow Life is trying to clamp down on that. I mean, we're squandering millions on the Commonwealth Games in a couple of years' time, which is meant to get Glasgow active and everyone moving and young people into sport and things, but there's not local facilities that are there and people can't even use and aren't allowed to use because of a bureaucracy that won't let them. That's absolutely ridiculous, and I think that needs to be sorted out.
First of all, about the salaries, yeah, you're right. It's ridiculous that anybody in the City of Glasgow, the council should earn more than a surgeon does, who actually changes people's lives and maybe saves people's lives on a daily basis, and yet now people get paid more than that. It is ludicrous, and we want to address that. The Greens in Brighton, got control of Brighton Council. They've actually encouraged the city, the chief executive, to take a 10% pay cut. It'd be nice to think that we could effect some influence in Glasgow as well, and maybe get people to at least take a small pay cut. So it goes without saying that something we want to work on, get to 1 in 10 ratio, ideally. And it's not so much about what the top earners earn. I've always said it's more about what people at the bottom earn as well, because they're the people that are affected by pay cuts much more so than the people at the top. So it's a case of addressing the minimum wage in Glasgow equally, rather than just talking about, although I agree entirely that people earning 200,000 can't justify it. Now, Commonwealth Games, the Olympics, there was a commitment by the British government to get 1 million people to take up sports because of the Olympics, and that project's kind of gone by the wayside for unknown reasons. It's been in the papers recently, and it beggars belief that City Life, Glasgow Life, sorry, really the reason they're going to involve Strathclyde Police potentially is because they're worried about unauthorised access. So maybe you could just, I was presuming you asked them, they could just say, yes, of course you can, because you're wanting to do some good, and you want to involve some kids in some sports. And they're also worried about, essentially, they're worried about the damage. I presume you're there to improve the facility, and in fact it's in a dilapidated state because Glasgow Life and the City of Glasgow have neglected it for so long.
Yeah.
So it's just ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous, and I agree with it. It's important that we support people like yourself and Somerset Youth Forum. It's important we support volunteers like that, but it's also equally important that when people take ownership of something, that we know that there's some sort of longevity, some sort of stability, some parameters that people can refer to, so that it's not just completely ad hoc. So yes, but I would totally support any volunteer who wants to do anything to do with young people, or sports, or arts and music.
Any final questions to Mr. Razaq, who obviously has to leave?
1 minute.
Right, gentlemen.
Can I just a community issue? I've put up the question of potholes. Most of the main roads are always done, but the schemes are always left. The potholes I was talking about have been left for about 2-3 years, but it's never been done. And if you complain, Land Services will say it belongs to Cube, Cube will say it belongs to Land Services.
Is that roads?
Roads, yes.
Go to the back.
I just wanted to ask all the candidates to go back to the issue of gender inequality. I thought some of the answers were pretty vague earlier, and I'd like to ask each of the candidates what exactly they're aware of that their manifesto says about gender inequality, how they're going to address it within their own parties, and what their strategy is for gender inequality more widely than that.
Nick, before you take the answers, can I just say all the people on the panel obviously knew that they were going to get filmed when they came here, but anybody from the audience who's asked a question, I've tried to film everybody, if anybody has a problem with that going onto the internet or they don't want their image used for anything, can you come and have a quick chat with me afterwards? I'll make sure that that doesn't happen.
Sorry, I'm having to leave because I did say the 8:15, but certainly I'll quickly answer your question and maybe touch on yours. Certainly, if you give me the list of potholes you're saying that haven't been done, I'll see what I can do about it. That's what I'm saying. But sometimes there is an issue if it's not ownership of city council, it's not a road that they can't do it. But that's very clear. But certainly if it is a pothole that you have, I'll leave a card here. If you want to let me know, and I'll see what I can do about it. There's a card. In terms of equality gender, I know recently Glasgow City Council paid quite a lot of money in terms of staff for many years that were underpaid in terms of, not underpaid, but there was something about equalities. That was a lot of money paid out to staff. I think, if I remember, about 40 million in the main, and people agreed to those figures, although it was a lot more than that in terms of owed to people, but it was an agreement set. And in terms of gender, in terms of political parties, I mean, certainly my party has been quite forward in terms of bringing more women into Parliament and otherwise because of shortlists of women only. So there are some things that have been done, and I think a lot more needs to be done, and I fully support that. But certainly I have to go now, I've got another kid. But I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Right, I'm assuming that the other candidates would like to answer that one as well.
Okay, in terms of tackling gender inequality, it's something that SSP does take very seriously. Even with our own party, we do try to have 50-50 representation in all the lists. In fact, that's in our constitution, where we were lucky enough to have members of Parliament, in fact 4 out of 6 were women. In terms of, we're very committed to tackling cuts to women's services. We've had people involved in lots of campaigns around those sort of issues. Beyond that, I'm not sure. I would probably have to read up on it, which I apologise for.
The Scottish Green Party do have it's in our constitution. We have a gender balancing policy. We send people away to like the European Green Congress or conference. It has to be male and female. And we have the 60-40 policy of standing candidates at hustings and elections as well. So we do have a policy on it, but beyond the actual party, we do have a policy on how to encourage women back into work, and one of the things would be to make childcare more accessible, more affordable. We should have publicly funded nurseries like they do in Scandinavia, where kids go to nursery or kindergarten till they're 6 or 7, and it's subsidised by the state, and it's staffed by qualified people. There's a ratio of qualified people that have to be there. So, you know, because those jobs actually highly regarded, it's regarded as a skill. We also think that women who do domestic work, you know, carers and stuff, are actually recognised. And we have a policy on, I can't quote it exactly, but there is something about encouraging having a certain ratio of women in on board of directors and things like that. So it is something that we have policies on. I'm happy to forward you all the details, but I can't remember them offhand.
Before I take any other questions or final comments, I'd like to say one thing. All the parties were invited, and they were all told in advance that it was going to be filmed. The Conservatives ignored all communication to the extent I was chasing them today to confirm whether or not they would attend, so no surprises there. Alex Dingwall also said that he was not prepared to come, so that's a shame. The SNP were here but didn't want to be on cam. So all the parties were invited, just to say that.
I don't think, like you say, the SNP were told it was going to be in camera. They never had the agenda either.
But
do you know what I mean?
I can assure you they were. Okay, any other comments?
Just a very brief comment. You can touch on that slightly there. I mean, I'm thinking, the domestic party's taking us serious, because I'm looking. Obviously the Labour guy was there, but they disaffect yourselves now. But there's no the Tories, no the SNP, no the Liberal Democrats. So I would seriously consider voting for one of the smaller parties now. Actually, because I've not had the common decency to turn up here and answer questions.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay then, I'd like to give the candidates a round of applause for